The defense summation, the defense closing argument was just under 3 hours. It was 2 hours, 51 minutes. And of course, the courtroom is in recess for lunch until 2 p.m. Eastern. Blanche ended his arguments by saying, if you focus just on the evidence you heard in this courtroom, this is a very quick and easy not guilty verdict. He also, before he left, said, like GOAT, which is the greatest of all time, Blanche called Michael Cohen the GLOAT, greatest liar of all time. He is biased and motivated to tell you a story that is not true. Interestingly, there were a few errors in the defense slide at the end there. One of our reporters, Lauren DeVal, notes instances of manipulation of evidence. They have the wrong October 2016 date for the alleged call to Trump via Schiller. They wrote October 20th instead of October 24th. They incorrectly called the DA's custodial witness David Dowse. His name is Douglas Dowse. What do you think, Tim? Impressive summary, impressive closing?
It went way too long.
Yeah.
It included way too much extraneous information, and as much as he has probably bored the jury to tears, Steinglass has the opportunity in 4.5 hours to do worse.
Well, I mean, and what would you tell Steinglass to do?
Shorten it up.
Shorten it up?
Yeah, if I were sitting there and I could grab Steinglass in the hallway and say what to do, shorten it significantly.
Yeah.
Just take the points, take that top 10 list at the end, nail that right off the top, and then shorten it up. This is way too long. They're going to.
So right now, what's going on? We have Steinglass asking for a curative ruling for something.
Yeah, there was an earlier point in time when during the closing, Todd Blanche suggested why you couldn't send this person to prison.
So you can't send Donald Trump to prison.
Yes, over this information. There was an objection that was sustained, and now they're asking for an instruction to tell the jury essentially, listen, you cannot consider that, number one, and also this aspect of it as well. First of all, it's very interesting to ever get an objection during either the closing or opening. We've had that happen more than once now in this particular case. That's important because you do not want to signal to the jurors that something has actually struck a nerve with you.
Just to interrupt for 1 second, at the bottom of your screen on the right side, you see people from the Trump team walking out for lunch break. I imagine, if we haven't already, that we'll see the former president himself as well doing so. That's definitely his posse. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Laura. Also,
we're going to see from the prosecutions, if this case had one witness, then perhaps this would have more meat on the bone from the defense. They had many witnesses beforehand to try to pre-corroborate Michael Cohen. They knew full well in the overall landscape that they would go after Michael Cohen in their closing and in the trial as well. They're going to have to now, at this point in time, come back up and rehabilitate not only that witness, but also confirm to the jury you didn't just hear from Michael Cohen. You heard from all sorts of people, none of whom's credibility was ever questioned during this. You also, the prosecution said that Blanche is doubling down that it's perfectly plausible to have no retainer agreement when that is not the law in New York State. This goes back to the heart of the matter that they tried to suggest that Cohen said, well, here was why I was being paid, written or not, here was the expectations. He's trying to go at that very point.
So can I just ask a question? This part that they're arguing about where Todd Blanche says you cannot send someone to prison, you cannot convict somebody based upon the words of Michael Cohen. And now the prosecution is asking, can we fix this? You cannot, you're trying to generate sympathy.
Mershon just said that he said that Todd Blanche's comment about sending Trump to prison was outrageous.
And is this? I mean,
that's the judge ruling.
This feels very political to me.
Can I just to interrupt?
Context?
Why is it so outrageous?
So their job is not to actually sentence. The jury's job is to find guilt or innocence. It is the judge whose
Judge
job
Mershon is saying you know that making a comment like that is highly inappropriate. Right. Would he have known that?
Of course.
Yes.
Prosecutors are not allowed to say anything about the punishment to a jury. Now, defense lawyers somehow
It's simply not allowed, period. Judge Mershon says it's hard to me to imagine that was accidental in any way, the judge.
Now, the judge, I believe, when he instructs the jury tomorrow, as part of the standard instruction, will say, the sentence is of no concern to you, jury. You're not to take that into consideration. What the judge is thinking about doing now, okay, there you go. So the judge is going to give a curative instruction as to the prison comment, meaning when the jury comes back after lunch, Judge Mershon is going to turn to them and say essentially this. You just heard the defense lawyer say something about you can't send this guy to prison. I'm instructing you, as a matter of law, I'm the judge here, that is irrelevant. You are not to take punishment into account in this case. He may even go a bit further and say, it's not even clear whether there would be a prison sentence. So that's going to sting. You do not want to finish up your closing as either lawyer and then have the judge bring the jury back and go, that thing he said at the end, inappropriate.
Imagine, if you will, it was death penalty case, for example, right?
Right.
You can't put this man
imagine,
to death.
Imagine if that was a statement. It's going to be, we talk about in the witness, in the information that comes in, prejudicial versus probative value. The idea of going to a deliberation and having a jury think, gosh, not if it's a matter of proof or you've met your burden, but do I want this person to go to jail? I might like this person. I want this person to have the sentence. It's inappropriate.
Go ahead,
And
Casey.
this is the part that I'm also wondering about, because that makes total sense. It's actually very clear, that example, which is helpful. But in this example, the idea that he's going to prison, it's much more than just a question about one man whose life is going to be affected. It is about the Republican nominee for president of the United States, one of the two people most likely to ultimately be president of the United States. I mean, there are layers upon political layers to what Blanche did just there. And it does, I guess my question would be, can it be a simple mistake, or is he doing it on purpose?
He did it on purpose. I can tell you firsthand, because as prosecutors, we hated this. We used to guard against it. We used to try to preempt it. We would jump out of our seat objecting to this. 100% Todd Blanche knows that's inappropriate. 100% he just snuck it in.
Will you have done this ever, Tim?
Well, defense. no, they do though, but they have their ways.
Yes.
That's a good question.
It was wrong when you did it.
We got it. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't have done it this way. No.
Yeah, okay.
The judge overseeing Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial says he will give jurors a curative instruction about a, quote, outrageous comment in defense attorney Todd Blanche's closing argument. The judge, Juan Merchan, not only called it highly inappropriate, but also said it was, quote, hard to imagine it was made in an accidental way. The key line from Blanche was when he said this, and let me quote, "You cannot send someone to prison. You cannot convict somebody based upon the words of Michael Cohen," close quote. The prosecution said it was a blatant and inappropriate attempt to get sympathy for Trump. Joining me now, former Florida Judge Jeff Swartz. Judge, thanks so much for joining us. What did you make of that comment? Do you think it was appropriate?
I think that Blanche got kind of desperate towards the end. I think that he had to say something like that to make his client happy. But when your whole case is based upon attacking Michael Cohen and claiming that they can't convict, that's fine. You can say that. But juries don't put people in jail. They don't put them in prison. They're not supposed to consider the penalty. They're only supposed to consider one thing, whether someone is guilty or not guilty of the charges and whether the state has proven their case. And he crossed the line beyond where he was supposed to go.
This is the judge crossed the line. Just want to be precise. Is that what you're saying?
No. Blanche crossed the line when he says you can't put someone in prison.
But when the judge
Juries
said it
don't
was
consider
highly,
prison.
the judge said it was highly inappropriate. Was it highly inappropriate?
It was highly inappropriate. And
So you agree with the judge?
Could deserve sanctions. It could
Yeah.
deserve sanctions.
Really? All right. We'll see what happens on that front.